Hi, my name's Dominic Smith. I'm a candidate for the Masters of Educational Technology program at UBC, or MET program. And this is an introduction to myself and also my capstone project or website related to the eTech 590. Um, I am currently a teacher of the 7-8 boys program at Queen Margaret School and also the junior technology coordinator. Shifted over from the senior technology coordinator a couple of years ago. And I've also had experience with the technology and without the title, uh, tried to integrate technology at King David High School in Vancouver. And from that experience at King David High School, I was teaching information technology, had a fair amount of experience with various hardware and software technologies during my practicum, including smartboards, and was asked to do the same at King David High School. And I found it difficult to integrate with the changes of technology, the rate at which technology was changing, to integrate that into my own classroom. And therefore, I found it difficult to model and integrate and help my colleagues integrate technologies into their own classrooms. With that in mind, I applied to the MET program at UBC and looking forward to the completion of this program with this presentation. Uh, Part of eTech 590 is to develop a proposal for your electronic portfolio and also a metaphor and to try and relate your learning in the program to something that has potentially personal uh, linkages to your learning. In this case, initially I thought about the Apollo program because I have an interest in space and thought, well, there's this linear progression. I started with eTech 500, I finished with eTech 565A and eTech 590, and I thought I could use that as a linear progression, send men to the moon, land on the moon, collect data, collect information, photos, information, bring it back to Earth, share the information. And it seemed to have a linear progression to it that I could relate to. However, generationally, it wasn't something that I could really relate to and didn't have a lot of knowledge about. But continuing on that theme, I was able to think about some of my personal learning uh, and what and my experiences. Um, and I reflected on my experience in my junior high school library in 1986, January, I believe it was, and sitting in front of a very square, I believe they're CRT televisions. Someone can correct me if I'm incorrect on that, but very much the big block television. And remembering the countdown process and liftoff for the Space Shuttle Challenger. And unfortunately, that disaster has stayed with me, and I just can remember the space shuttle lifting off the launch pad, and about 7 seconds in, it's time for throttle up. The astronauts acknowledge throttle up, and as they go to throttle up, the external tank explodes. And I was very much looking forward to that particular mission, and the reason being, oddly enough, I'm now a teacher 30 years later. A civilian and a teacher, Krista McAuliffe, was part of that astronaut team, and she was going to be sending back video feedback of what she was doing and what she was learning and sharing that with students in the States and globally. And I wasn't going to get that opportunity. And I remember looking at this space shuttle exploding, and I couldn't believe it. All that effort and all that teamwork and all the things that had gone into putting this vehicle in space, 7 seconds, done. It was over. Uh, but having said that, over time, they've investigated, they've found out what the problems were, they corrected those problems, used other technologies, and the space shuttle program became relatively safe, with the exception of one other mission. And unfortunately, there wasn't much to be done about that because the heat pads underneath the space shuttle had come loose, some of them on launch. But those challenges and the way that when I investigated further what goes into putting a space shuttle or orbiter in orbit and to put together the International Space Station, spacewalks, all these different goals and achievements aren't just one person or two people. This is hundreds of thousands of people, different organizations, very much a team effort, learning as they go, figuring out what went wrong on the previous mission. And technology was very much a key component of that. As I learned through the EdTech program, or sorry, the MET program, and various ETech courses, that team building, support, peer evaluation, feedback was something that was core to a constructivist style of teaching and learning. And in order to get through this particular program, interacting, sharing, developing your own learning pathway or your personal learning environment would lead to success in the MET program. And of course, just like the space shuttle and that particular program, technology was key. Uh, Interestingly enough, I did manage to find a paper which I've done a little summary at the end of my uh, electronic portfolio, which outlined how some of the technology from the shuttle and orbiter programs has been now used commercially for things that are completely different than what that technology was originally planned for. For example, uh, one of the programs was used to assess the different programs, all the information, all the computer information, data, and be processed and centralize it so that mission control could evaluate it and they could look back at it and reflect on the mission. That particular program was converted and used for whale watching and whale research. And so what would happen is you'd have a number of different images of whales and a number of different pieces of information and data related to those particular whales. And so how to link those two pieces of information for the researchers. And what they found was they could use this particular piece of software to link all that information so that when the picture's taken and the information from the database and they're linked. Also, I found it very interesting that also this artificial intelligence program that could learn and almost behave like some of the astronauts from its learning was then, from the orbiter, was then integrated and used, oddly enough, for one of the first social, literally, dating sites. So that was kind of interesting. So if you have your information and you have your information, and you are different people or you're similar people, the program would learn to bring you together. So although what's interesting about this is although the technology was built for one purpose, for the space shuttle and the orbiter program, it was being now used for something different and used successfully. Just as in the MET program, we were given a number of opportunities to use different programs for collaboration, sharing, and completing different pieces of information and reflection. These programs weren't developed for educational purposes, but we were given the opportunity through scaffolding and learning and understanding constructivism to figure out how we were going to use them to meet certain outcomes that were required in the MET program. For instance, Google Docs, Skypes, blogs, WordPress, for instance, were all used for sharing information, for reflection, for collaboration, and to complete the tasks that we had to complete. So, I could talk to a colleague in China and Mexico at the same time and come up with a wiki, for instance, and say, okay, how are we going to set this up? How are we going to put this together? Those programs weren't developed for education, but they were being used for learning and educational purposes. And that, in essence, is the core to the MET program. By learning about constructivism, where my initial environment and learning space is, where other people's learning space exists, and how can technology be used to bring those learning spaces together and those personal experiences together to strategize and complete and problem solve or come up with solutions. And invariably, there were a number of pieces of software that we would use that we weren't told to use. For example, in eTech 565A, again, I used a program such as Vuvox to do a media presentation, which I have since used for um, a media arts course at the school. And students can look at that and see the model and say, okay, I can use this to create something similar or something slightly different, but this is how I'm going to use that technology. It may not even have been Vuvox. It could have been something else like Prezi or anything else like that. Um, Constructivism, again, and the scaffolding and the building of that knowledge, um, learning about theorists such as Vygotsky or Piaget were core. And in courses such as eTech 530 and 512, we were given the opportunity to develop lesson plans or critically look at lesson plans and say how can they be improved with a constructivist view based on our learning of that particular procedure. And there are, as I figured out, there are a number of different styles. What I tended to focus on was a constructivism instructional model, or CIM, for both of my lessons. And what I noticed, and you'll see those in my portfolio, is the progression of where I took those. In this case, it was sort of required to look at what students already knew and where they were going, and to assess, I guess, their sort of zone of proximal development. Uh, what is the discrepancy between their sort of mental age and their ability to solve problems? And so how does a lesson fit into that context? And what I noticed between 530 and 512 was I was able to tighten it together. As we go through and the scaffolding and the learning occurs, you're able to bring it together and make it more pertinent. And so, development and use of KWL charts, so to speak, and online resources to help students either support what they already know or to help break down what they know so that they can move forward with their learning in not the correct fashion, but the fashion in which they will understand the information at a metacognitive level. So how can we use the theories, the technology, to assist the students to enjoy the process, ask questions, and develop their own learning style? Uh, so that was something that developed along the way and something that became more succinct for me as I developed my understanding of the concept. Uh, Personal journey through the course, some of the things I was not totally comfortable about 3 or 4 courses in. In one of my courses, I was asked to do a venture pitch, and personal presentation for me and promoting myself is not a strength. But I learned through that program and that course that I could overcome that barrier, and by doing so, it developed a structural foundation for me to go and then realize that I could go and play, try, develop my learning of the technology and how it could be integrated and how instructional design for courses could occur. For example, in 565A, we were asked to put together a learning management system or a course within a learning management system tool, Moodle. And there was a comfort zone once I got to that point at the end of the program, towards the end of the program, where I could put together these pieces and create something that in a blended learning environment where you'd have class time and online time. But that comfort level with that development of that particular learning management system had occurred much earlier. Uh, One of the other things is to value collaborative um, learning. Uh, I like to sort of do things on my own, and in this course, in this program, courses and program, I had to learn how to work with my peers, accept feedback, in particular ETech 590, and put my information out there so that my peers could provide feedback. And the one thing I learned is that technology can enable not only myself but other students and my students to get that feedback from peers, parents, administrators, and other stakeholders without those other stakeholders being in the classroom. And it extends a classroom well beyond its borders. And so you can create blogs and reflect, show images, presentations, media, and you can get that information, and that information allows a student to develop their sense of knowledge of the world around them and their personal environment. Um, so very much a learning process not only for myself, but being able to share that with my peers and get feedback from them was very valuable. And I hadn't really thought about that until I used such programs as Google Docs, Google Presentations, Skype, blogs, etc. And to get the feedback uh, it enabled me in particular to, again, make things more succinct. And because of that, and because of the feedback that I've had from peers, I've been able to now use the information and the technology, the learning, the tools that I've learned, and the feedback that I've had from my peers in my own working environment. And happy to say that because of the program, I've been able to put together proposals and formulate 3 new initiatives at our school, including a one-to-one laptop program, an iPad cart program, and a laptop cart program for some of our junior kids. And so I'm looking forward to the next stage of my trip and my journey uh, based on the information that I've learned in the MET program in relationship to my metaphor. It's now time for reentry and to be able to analyze and reflect on the mission, so to speak, and think about where this will take me in the future and how it will assist not only myself and administrators in the school, but the students and the parents integrate technology into their lives for learning as they move forward, and to meet some of those standards in BC that the current government is trying to integrate and push for technology use in classrooms. So it would seem that sharing, collaborating, and working as a team is core to success in education, based on my experiences in the MET program. And I look forward to sharing in my next video the navigation and what my EP looks like. And hopefully you can enjoy a quick visit and get some information that may help you or show you what I've learned or help you with your own educational uh, tool use with the respect to technology. So thanks for watching.